Hello everybody, I am going to show you a custom preamp that I have built for a person that have something really unique requirement, and he cannot buy a preamp on the market that have all the outputs that he needs, and this preamp have more output than input, a lot more. And the preamp is based on the C310, which has a separate power supply. And since it has so many outputs, I need to put that preamp in the bigger chassis. The C310 is actually the same width, but these are 1.5 inches shorter and 4 inches shallower. This one is 14 inches deep, 4¼ high, and same width as 16¾ So I am going to move the camera to a closer tripod to show you the closer look at the front panel and all the switches. And I'm going to intend to use this video as a menu for this preamp, so it may be boring. So be aware of that, okay? Put down this, put this down. I'm moving off the tripod, go into this one. Okay, turn it out a little bit, turn this way. Alright, you can see it now. I can see it, you can see it. I am going to go to the back. Okay, this preamp, from your left, which is this is an input selector. It's B1, B2 are for the balance input, and on the 1 o'clock position or 1:30 position is the SE, which is single-ended input, and is selected by 3 toggle switches, S1, S2, and S3. So when you want single-ended input, you turn it to the SE and then select 1, 2, or 3. If you want balance 1, balance 2, you turn it to, this is balance 2 and this is balance 1. This is a selector, input selector. And then we go to the selector for the capacitor. And C310 has 2 types of capacitor in the signal path. One is the X2 cap and the other one is paper and oil cap. And the top toggle switch is for you to select capacitor or direct. Up is direct, which means bypass all the capacitor. So signal path go right through to the gain stage. When you push it down, you can select either the X2 cap and or the paper and oil cap. So you can have one type or both mixed in for the sound. And then move on to the next stage. These are the 2 separate pairs of preamp outputs. The top 2 are preamp output number 1, and the bottom 2 are preamp output number 2. This is your left, and this is your right. And the purpose of this is you can hook up 2 stereo amp or 2 pairs of mono block to biamp your speaker. Preamp number 1 go to your highs and preamp number 2 go to your bass. And then move to the master control. Now once you set your left and right and then top and bottom, the ratio, once you set the ratio, you don't want to touch it anymore, and the ratio is set to suit your room. In this case, the customer wants the left and right balance control because the room is not symmetrical, or he has different things on the left and right wall and cause the sound to sound slightly off. So the left and right control is very helpful. But once you find the right ratio, you don't have to touch it anymore. So you just turn the master one control, this one, to control the overall volume. And if you change something, change the speaker, change the amp, change whatever, you just turn the 4 knobs to make the new amp, new equipment, or even just room adjustment suitable. again. So that's the front panel. And I'm going to turn it around to show you the back panel. This is where all the input outputs that cause the big chassis. On this side is the inputs. That's input, single-ended input 1, 2, and 3. And this is balance 1. This is balance 2. Now, even that they are balanced input, I also have put a single-ended input in parallel with balance. So you can use either or. Not recommended you use both at the same time, but you can. It will just mix them together. So as is right now on all of my current product that has balanced input, I always put a single-ended input along with the balanced input. So it actually acts like a 5 single-ended input preamp or 3 single-ended input and 2 balance. So it just gives you more flexibility. And then he also has a digital recorder and a headphone amp that want to connect it to this preamp. So he requested the line level output, which does not go through any volume control. And in fact, this line level output does not go through the capacitor. So not to order the original sound coming from the input. So he has a digital recorder and a preamp. They both have balanced input. So I put balanced output for both pieces. And since it's balanced output, I can also put a single-ended output just for more flexibility. Now, in terms of output, you can actually use all 8 outputs together. So you can basically hook up 4 pieces of equipment, say 1 digital recorder, maybe even three headphone amps, maybe. So any kind of line level equipment that you can think of, you can hook it up at the same time. Unlike the balanced input, the balance and single and output can be used together without interference from each other. So that can be handy because you basically have 4 pairs of line level outputs as is right now. Okay, so remember this line level output does not go through the capacitor. So this remains original signal from the input. So therefore, whatever you do with the capacitor switch or the direct capacitor selector switch, it will not affect the line leveled outputs. Now move to this side. These are the preamp number 1 and preamp number 2 outputs. This is preamp number 1 if I point it correctly, and this is preamp number 2. Top row is left, bottom row is right, is marked clearly. And so as the line level input, the top rows is always left, the bottom rows is always right. And the single-ended input is red is right and white is left. So back to this preamp output. The preamp outputs, each one is controlled by the front panel's knob. Remember the front panel knobs has preamp out left and right and preamp 2, preamp 1 left and right, preamp 2 left and right. So that's the knobs is according to the output to control the upper amps, mid-high amps, and the woofer amps with different level, and also left and right different level to suit the room in balance. Again, all the single-ended outputs are active along with the balance output. That means you can actually hook up 4 stereo amp or 4 pairs of monoblock at the same time, but it will able to control as 4 channels, 4 separate channels instead of 8 separate channels. But you can actually hook up 8 channels of amplification from this set of output. Move along to this side. This is the signal ground and earth ground separate switch, sometimes as common to refer to as ground lift switch. It is really just a separate between the earth ground and the signal ground, and the earth ground of the chassis remain unchanged. It's always connected for safety. But the signal ground often it's beneficial to separate from the earth ground for less chance of ground loop. But in many cases, the way that I connect the internal ground path is fairly unlikely that you need the ground lift switch unless you have other components that have single-ended ground loop issue in the room. I am going to show you the inside after I finish the outside and describe why I construct things the way I do is uncommon. So be aware of the uniqueness or strange look, but they are all for a reason. So this is the earth ground and signal ground separate switch. So that's, you can separate them to fix some of the ground loop issue. 3 jacks on this side. These are the capacitor, external capacitor connector and power supply. This is a power supply. This has to go to the power supply. There's a 4-pin switch there, all 4-pin male jacks. Now what happens if somebody just accidentally connect the power supply into the wrong jack? Well, no big deal. The preamp still work. But I'm going to tell you, the remote control will stop working. Because one of the pins on this power supply jack is for the remote control. So if you have connected to these jacks or the bottom jacks, the preamp will still work because you have the plus and minus rail and the ground, but no power for the remote. And should I go to say that don't panic? Because there are people that actually have panicked before, so I just calm them down and say, no big deal, you just hooked up the wrong jacks. Nothing happened. I do think about that kind of things. If you hook it up it's wrong, nothing will happen. It's just no big deal. Just remote control doesn't work. So just unplug it, put it in the right jacks. You're fine. So this is going to the power supply. That's simple. That's no question asked. But why do we have 2 SP cap pack jacks? The reason, all of my current design are capable to connect external capacitor for different voltage. SP capacitor pack is for line level, phono stage, preamp, DACs, headphone amps, and any other possibly line level component. Solid state, not tube. Tube have different cap pack. But the SP cap pack is a fixed voltage and for all of my line level equipment. Why do we have 2? Well, obvious reason that you can actually hook up 2 external cap pack, but is it necessary? No, not really. One of them going to the external cap pack, the other one can be used for connect to another piece of equipment of mine or by design. For example, power amp. You can connect the second jack via a cable to one of my power amp and therefore tie the power supply together. It ties the input stage of the power amp and the preamp together. Now, why do we want to tie the power supply together? And in the old school that we always thought of tying the power supply together will contaminate the left and right channels and contaminate other things. That's why we have dual mono design. In those age, there was a point, yes, because the capacitor are relatively expensive. It's like a reservoir. If you have a little bucket of water, if you put the red ink from the right channel and the blue ink from the left channel, when you put in the little bucket of water, you turn into purple. Very quickly, you turn into purple. But if you have a big, really big reservoir, just like big capacitor power supply, you put a little bit of red into the reservoir and the blue in the reservoir, you will not see that purple for a long time. So contamination is fairly irrelevant, but there's a benefit of having 2 power supply tied together, or even all of the line level power supply tied together. Phono stage, DAC, preamp, and the input of the power amp tied together. That It's called synchronization. So why synchronization? And I am going to turn the camera up so you can see my face. Let me see what I can do. Wrong side. Turn it out. Synchronization of power supply. Now I'm getting off tangent, so if you don't want to listen to me keep yapping such, you can skip to the back, and I will skip to the back, farther back, so I will show you the inside. But I'm going to take this opportunity to explain why do we have extra jacks. The synchronization means the power supply, the various power supply for all the equipment are going to up and down at the same time. So you don't have one going up, one going down because of the signal. But all the power supply are going up and down at the same time, so every single circuit are seeing the same thing. So that's synchronization. They basically dance together. We have proven, I have built a dual mono amp that have a couple of toggle switches. One side you have a dual mono power supply, the other side you tie the two power supply together. Separate transformer, separate capacitor, just not separate power cord. But I can tie the power supply, two power supply together by flipping the switch. And we have proven every time when we flip the switch to the stereo mode, which means the power supply are tied together, sounds better than dual mono. In theory, you might get some more separation of dual mono, but in practice, that separation is not worth it compared to the benefit of synchronization. Again, in the old day, dual mono makes sense because the capacitors are expensive, and therefore you have, in order to do synchronization, you got to buy a lot of capacitor, and 30 years ago, for the same value of capacitance and voltage is almost 4 to 5 times bigger than today. Supercap only happens about 20 years ago. But before supercap, the capacitor, regular capacitor costs are going down, but in these 20 years it's actually farther down compared to the 1970s. It's almost 5 times the physical size for the same amount of capacitance and voltage. So it is possible to do synchronization with power supply when you build it big enough. And in this case, I'm basing this preamp as a C310, which originally has over 268,000 microfarad, and I add another 90,000 microfarad in this one, so to make it to 350,000 microfarad, approximately 350,000 microfarad. And I have cap packs, external SP cap pack that range from half a farad to 3.6 farad. So you can just buy the external capacitor, just plug it into one of the jack, and you get the external extra capacitance. And if you hook up the other jacks to other things like power amp, the power amp input, DACs and phono stage, the other component will benefit too. Now there's also tricks on the closer the capacitance, the better the benefit. But if you have like 1 meter of cable, it may be slightly different, but they are still beneficial because of the synchronization. Okay, so I'm going to take the camera off and show you the internal of the preamp and show you why I do the wiring the way I do, and see if we can get some sense out of it. Okay, what I am going to do is turn this preamp back to the front again. Now you have seen the preamp front and you have seen the preamp back. Not much to see on the power supply. The power supply just like this black face and with little bit of amber light in the front when it turn on, and the back it's just a cable, IEC jacks. That's it. So not much to see. But I'm still going to show you the inside because it's quite unusual. And for those that you have followed me for a while, you probably have seen some of my internal wiring. But for anybody that's new to me, to my channel, or to my design, you might be surprised what you're looking at. So, okay, let me try this. Okay, let me take off my glasses. I can see close with my glasses on. You know what that means. Okay, so let's see. From the beginning, you might just think this is a mess. Well, I'm going to tell you, it might look like a mess from a 2D point of view from a camera. But I am going to show you from the side of the table. Now can you see all these wires are spaced, they have space in between, they're not touching. So I'm going to move over here. You can see all those wires are not touching. Get you some light. The reason I do that is I am using the natural tension of the wire insulation and solder on both ends of the wire and then push them together a tiny bit so that it has a natural curve. It has a natural curve to the wire, and then after that sometimes I put silicone to hold the wire. If the camera will, yep, you can see that. That's the silicone column that hold the wire, because this one have almost a 10 inches span from the front control to the back. So that's why I put one of these silicone column to hold the middle. But without that, the wire are naturally just sit like this, not touching each other, naturally sit like this. I also like to let wire a tiny bit loose like this. It's not going to hurt anything because the weight of the wire is not going to be cause any trouble during shipping. And also on the output wire that I purposely just dangling on the thin air, because air is also always the best dielectric that you can have. The input wire are touching the chassis because the input have a high impedance. That's why closer to the chassis will help decrease the amount of noise pickup. Of course, there is always a helicopter landing pad to hold the capacitor in place, and there's also some circuit inside this blue column. So I might as well just build it up on top, and then these actually help to hold the capacitor in place during shipping. So you can turn the preamp upside down and shake it in and out, and the top cover will hold that blue silicone column. I call that helicopter landing pad, and it will not allow the capacitor to move around. And you will see a lot of the white silicone that look like spider webs, and you know I actually call them spider web, silicone by spider web. I purposely pull them because I need to have some fun when I build things like this. I don't build anything for the mass, so I only need to please a few people that understand what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do, and have experienced the result of my design, and they appreciate my work. So I said, if you want me to build something custom, you gotta let me have some fun. So that's why I do color silicone, and I call those icicle, silicone icicle. See that? See the clear silicone, the clear silicone that stick out there. Let me see if I can get my finger there. Yeah, that one that stick out. They climb up. I call that silicone icicle. It just, you know, I have to have some fun when I build these things. So I think this video is boring enough by now, and I hoped I have described enough of the preamp to the customer that actually buying this. And am I going to put it into production? Probably not. But if you want something with this with all this feature to biamp your speaker, I can I'm happy to build a preamp like that for you based on this. And if you have slightly different requirements of this and that, you can always contact me and tell me, can I have an extra output or can I have an extra input? It's always possible. It's just a matter of how much you are willing to pay me to do a custom preamp. And I'm hoping this customer is going to be happy. Oh, one last thing. Let me see if I can show you this. See that blue panel there? That's my fun piece. Usually, I have the black panel and the red panel, but I am adding a blue one on top of this. Those holes has meaning. Reflection. And I am going to try to see that blue piece there, that's blue in the middle. Those holes has meaning because these have 4 outputs, and all the dots around the circle is the capacitor mixing circuitry. And one more thing, the outer circle doesn't line up with the inner. And then also that have a little bit of there. Now you might not able to see it, but I'm sure when the customers got the preamp, he is going to see it. Okay, I am going to cut this video off now because I am actually having too much fun doing this, and I'll keep talking if I don't shut it off. Okay, let me put it on the preamp. No, tripod. Yeah. I'm gonna have too much fun. I haven't drank anything yet. Until next time, see you. Stay safe. Bye.